Today we're going to talk about property insurance, and more specifically we're going to talk about perils. Now, what are perils? Perils are activities, things like fire and lightning and windstorm. And when you go to buy insurance, you generally don't buy perils individually. You can't go to the insurance company and say, I'd like fire, but I really don't want windstorm. I'd love smoke, but you can keep sinkhole collapse. When you go to buy perils, you have to buy them in packages. In the world of insurance, there are three different packages that you can buy. They are basic, broad, and special. Now, basic and broad are known as named peril coverages. So what does that mean? It means if it ain't named, it ain't covered. So whatever happened to your stuff has to be on the list of perils. If it's not on that list of perils, you don't get paid. In other words, if it ain't named, it ain't covered. I know that ain't a word. But when you go to take the state exam, I want it to be as if I were standing next to you. I want you to hear my voice inside your head. So when you think of named peril coverages, just remember, if it ain't named, it ain't covered. The burden of proof falls on you. You have to prove that whatever happened to your stuff was on this list of perils, and if it's not on that list of perils, you don't get paid. The other package that you have available to you is special. Now, special is open peril. When it comes to open peril, you're going to be covered for everything except what's excluded. Now the burden of proof falls on the insurance company. They have to prove that whatever happened to your stuff was excluded. If whatever happened to your stuff is not excluded, then you get paid. So with open peril, remember that you're going to be covered for everything except what's excluded. And again, the burden of proof falls on the insurance company. Now, a lot of people, what they want you to do is they want you to memorize all the perils under basic. And they give you like all of these mnemonic different things, like all these flying RVs and everything like that. Honestly, that's a load of crap. Why would you want to memorize that whole list and then try to memorize all the perils under broad? Now you're trying to memorize two different lists to take the state exam. At the end of the day, what you really want to remember are the four things that are covered under broad that are not covered under basic. And then what you do is you use common sense from there. When you're taking the exam, if they give you a peril, and it's not on the four things covered under broad that aren't covered under basic, but it sounds like something that ought to be covered, like fire, like lightning, like windstorm, then you know that basic would do the job. If whatever peril they give you is on your list of four, then you know that that would be broad form. If whatever peril they give you is not on the list of four, but it sounds kind of unusual, like a runaway circus elephant, then you know that you would need special. So, in essence, you don't need to memorize all these lists. You just need to memorize one list with four items. And if you can memorize that one list with four items, then you're going to be all set for the exam. So now the question becomes, how do you memorize the four things that are covered under broad that are not covered under basic? Well, in reality, it's quite simple. All you need to do is picture a building all by itself. And it doesn't matter what building you think of, just think of a building all by itself. Now what's going to happen? Well, the snow is going to be falling. So we have falling objects. That snow collects on the roof of the building. We have the weight of ice, snow, and sleet. That causes the building to collapse. When the building collapses, the pipes burst, causing water damage. This is a linear example from top to bottom. And each activity leads to the next activity. And when you think about it, it should play inside your head like a little movie. So when you think of the four things that are covered under broad that are not covered under basic, again, you picture a building all by itself. The snow is falling, so we have falling objects. It collects on the roof of the building. We have the weight of ice, snow, and sleet. This causes the building to collapse, and when the building collapses, the pipes burst, causing water damage. That's one list with four items. That's a lot easier to remember than all these other different lists. If whatever peril they give you on the exam is not on that list of four, but it sounds like something that ought to be covered, like fire or lightning or windstorm, then you know that basic would do the job. Honestly, if you bought a policy and fire wasn't covered, wouldn't you think you're getting ripped off? That's basic perils. If the peril they give you is on that list of four, then you know it's broad. If the peril they give you is not on list for but sounds kind of unusual, again, like a runaway circus elephant, then you know that you would need special. So once more, with feeling, the 4 things that are covered under broad that are not covered under basic are falling objects, weight of ice nor sleet, collapse, and water damage. I hope this little tip helps you pass the state exam. In an earlier demonstration, I talked about perils. And I talked about named peril, which means if it ain't named, it ain't covered. And open peril, which means if you're covered for everything except what's excluded. That would be special. So now what we're going to do is give you an example to show you the difference between open peril and named peril. Let's say that you had a homeowner's policy, and one of the most common homeowner's policies is a homeowner's 3 policy. Now with homeowner's 3, you get special perils on the building, and you get broad perils on your contents. So let's say that you're sitting in your kitchen and you're peeling potatoes because you're going to have mashed potatoes, and along the way you cut your finger. Now you go out of the kitchen, into the family room, down the hallway to the bathroom. But along the way you drip blood on the carpet and blood on the couch. Now, let's think about the couch for a second. The couch is obviously going to be part of your contents, and the couch is covered with broad form perils. Now, what do we know about broad? We know that broad is named peril, which means if it ain't named, it ain't covered. So when I look at the list of perils for broad, I'm going to notice that blood ain't named. And because blood ain't named, blood ain't covered. So we would not cover any damage to the couch whatsoever. The carpet, on the other hand, would be considered part of the building. And the carpet gets special. And special is open peril, which means that you are covered for everything except what's excluded. When I look at the exclusions, I'm going to find that blood is not listed as an exclusion. And because blood is not listed as an exclusion, blood would be covered. So in this case, because the couch had named peril coverage, which means if it ain't named, it ain't covered, any blood spilled on the couch would not be covered at all. Because blood ain't named, and because blood ain't named, blood ain't covered. The couch, or the carpet on the other hand, is part of the building. The building that's special. Special is open peril. And open peril means I'm covered for everything except what is excluded. In this case, because blood is not excluded, blood would be covered. That is a simple difference between named peril and open peril coverage. I hope this tip helps you pass the state exam.